Hello everyone and welcome to Blue Tengu's live game development show where we show everything that goes into making a game from concept to completion. If you've ever wanted to make a game, we hope this will help lower the barrier to entry, maybe give you the nudge you needed to try it yourself. Even if you don't want to make a game, we hope you'll find some value in what we're doing here. All of the information about where you can find us is in the Twitch info down below if you're watching us on Twitch, or in the YouTube profile for those of you catching us later. But just in case, we're at www.bluetengu.com. Tengu on Twitter, facebook.com Blue Tengu Studio, youtube.com Blue Tengu Studio for those of you watching Twitch now, and Twitch TV Blue Tengu for those of you watching us on YouTube. If you missed any episodes, you can always catch them over at YouTube, but you shouldn't have any trouble following along even if you haven't seen them. For those of you who haven't seen the show on Twitch or YouTube before, my name's Eric. I'm a game designer living over here in Japan who's trying to show you everything that goes into making a game for 2 hours a week. Including all of the ums and ahs and awkward debugging moments. And since running low on sleep and the coffee's not kicking in yet, I'm going to have a lot of those, which is probably why I'm stuttering right now quite a bit. Usually I start to warm up a little bit as the episode goes on. But the reason I'm showing everything as opposed to making the game first and scripting out rehearsed tutorials is because I want to lower that barrier you feel to making a game, and I hope inspire you to go out and try it yourself if you aren't already doing it. Thank you to everyone who dropped by last week, and to all of you who've watched the video on YouTube. For those of you here with me on Twitch, feel free to drop suggestions or ask questions at any time. I may not be able to get to them right away because I am working, but I'll try to get to them. And if I can't, please send me a private message here, or leave a comment on our site or YouTube video, and I'll do my best to address it next time. If any of you are out there making something yourself and you don't mind showing it off, send me a link to your stuff. I'd love to see it. You can even post it in the Twitch feed. That's fine. I allow links. Obviously, if someone starts spamming, then I'll just deal with them on an individual basis. But for the most part, I think people are pretty good on Twitch, so I'm not going to worry about it. At this time every week for 2 hours, I come onto Twitch TV to work on the game Project Spaghetti, a top-down 2D cowboy shooter. I think I had a little bit of a Twitch hiccup there. Hopefully it's okay. I think the recorded video is alright, so you won't notice anything on YouTube, but nice to know that Twitch is a little spotty this week. This should make things interesting. But just in case, I'll repeat what I just said. At this time every week, for 2 hours, I come on Twitch TV to work on the game Project Spaghetti, which is a top-down 2D cowboy shooter where the bullets fired bounce around the screen with a pinball mechanic. Last week I worked on giving the player more dodging options, letting them move in one of 8 directions when they dodge, even giving them a small window where they can move after they start dodging, rather than just forcing them to just duck in place, which we've been doing so far. I had a lot of trouble getting certain directions to work and discovered it was a keyboard hardware limit thanks to one of you guys in the chat. And I posted a little information about that, but after the episode I spent a little overtime to spread the dodge out over a couple of frames, because as it was just warping around. Did it the easy way during the episode, but then afterwards, wanted to make it actually look like the player was dodging out of the way. Don't actually have the sprite done, so I put that in the task list. I can do that another episode, another time. But now I'm ready to move on to another player task, which is making a visible change to the player character to indicate how many lives are left. Up until now, I've always had the standard video game thing of having a number of heads in the upper left of the screen or something that just show how many lives the player has left. Don't really need to do that because, well, I explained this in the post over at the site, but the fact that the player gets hurt anyway, it's not really a lives concept, and people are allowed to continue when they run out of lives anyway. So I figured I would do something a little different, more taking inspiration from games like Ghosts and Goblins and stuff, where they actually show the health or the number of lives, so to speak, through the actual character themselves. But let's go over to the task list that I have and see what I did in overtime, and then get to this episode. So I'm gonna jump over to the desktop here. Need to shrink that down. Okay. And keep my task list over at Trello.com. One of you guys who's been posting on the YouTube videos actually voted on a couple of things in here, which is actually a really good idea. So if you're interested in some of these tasks over other ones, feel free to vote. Thank you for voting, by the way. Um, last Between last episode and this episode, during the overtime, I did a couple of things. Uh, Quite a bit of like script cleanup, I guess. One thing was a lot of variables that I was using. When I first started out, I used a lot of like zeros and ones, thinking I might have different states or whatever to worry about. But at the end of the day, dead is pretty much just one state. You're either dead or you're not. Things like that, I just switched them out to booleans, which means instead of being able to store 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it just stores true and false. It makes the code clearer too, and of course it saves on memory, although modern computers, it's not going to make much of a difference whether it's an integer or a boolean. But, might as well save memory where I can. So I did that. Also displayed, animation tween frames. Just means I spread that when the player dodges out of the way. I spread that over a couple of frames rather than just one frame of movement. But I can show you that when I jump in the game. I did add a Scorpion Angry Sprite, like on the desert level, which I did probably back in September or so. Those episodes had the Scorpion where if you shoot the Scorpion from the front, it blocks the bullet and then starts charging the player. Figured it was a good idea to show that state, kind of like I was doing with the ghosts, where actually I did that stuff in November. That's right, because I did it after the ghost stuff. So if you're interested in those episodes, those are September or November, around November. But before, the Scorpion just looked the same whether it was angry or not. Now I have two different sprites. I think I can show you that when I jump in the game, but it's just the brown sprite when it's wandering around and then a red sprite when it's angry at you. Also got rid of unnecessary sprite variables until now. Each of those like objects, like enemy objects and stuff, they had, because I was working with like bad cowboy, badder cowboy, different variants of the same enemy object, and was kind of inheriting from that. I figured the easiest way to do that would be to have sprite variables for the different like motions and stuff, like which sprite do you display when the enemy's looking left and stuff. And I was storing all that in variables, but it was just kind of wasteful, so I got rid of that. And the last thing I did was actually a gameplay thing. Decided, with the alien and the shield, that the alien laser is set up in such a way that the aliens just kind of tend to kill each other, and that's not very fun for the player. So what I did was I switched that mechanic a little bit so that when a laser does hit another alien, its shield drops, but it only drops for a short period of time, during which the player can attack the alien. But I can show that as well, if I remember all these things that I have to show. Let's see, dodging, scorpions, aliens. Okay, those are the things I have to show. But that was after last week's episode. So I'll just move that aside. This week, I'm going to, like I said in the introduction, work on showing the players, well, not really health, because health you think of from like a value from 0 to 100%, so it's not really health, it is lives, but the amount of lives the player has left, express that through like the sprite. So first thing I'm going to have to do is make those sprites. Second thing is to switch out the sprites based on the number of lives left. System-wise, I can still use sprites, but just in terms of showing it to the player, I don't need to do that. But first, let me show those things in the game itself. So let me jump over to GameMaker here. By the way, I'm going to need to be careful about drinking water because I've got the heater running. It's freezing over here in Japan right now, so it's going to dry me out if I don't be a little more careful than I usually am. And by the way, if any of you are interested in buying GameMaker, I mean, it goes on sale all the time, but it is on sale until, I think, January. Well, I think it says it right here, actually. Oh, it doesn't say when, but it's until like January, the beginning of January, but there is a sale where you can pick up GameMaker for cheaper than usual, like 50% off, 60% off, if you're interested. But let's jump right into the game here. Okay. So the first thing to show is the dodge. So now you see the character kind of slides as opposed to just warping. It makes it feel a little more like a proper dodge. And as you can see, I can actually even use it to you know, power up multiple bullets. I got hit there. And this is the desert level with the scorpion, so I'll show you how the sprites are changing. As you can see, it starts out brown, but if I hit it in the front, it gets upset, turns red, starts charging me. When it's done charging, it goes back to the brown, just wandering around state. And last thing is aliens. The whole gameplay mechanic is that when an alien hits a crystal, it reflects off, hits its shield. Before, it would just stay like that. Now, the shield comes back. So you do have a brief window to attack aliens, but it's more you doing the attacking as opposed to aliens doing the attacking. Get this last guy out of the way. Kill myself. But it also gave you a good chance to see how the lives mechanic works, because I did actually, you know, hit myself 3 times. Up in the corner here, there were like 3 faces, like that. And every time I end up hitting myself, you know, I go into this hurt state and I lose one of these, which is a life. And when it's over, you know, I collapse dead. But I can continue from the level where I started off. So, first thing to do is going to be to make those sprites that I need. So let's go to graphics, player. These are all my player sprites. I do use Photoshop for my sprite stuff because I know I'm just comfortable working in Photoshop, but just to let you know, because it has been a while since mentioning it, there are free programs out there that you can use for spriting and stuff. Some of the ones, like the closest thing to actual Photoshop is a program called GIMP. It's pretty much the same thing. Everything, the controls are a lot different and everything else, so I don't feel comfortable working in it as comfortable in it as Photoshop or anything. Some other things you can use are like Krita, Graphic Scale. There are programs out there, but I do use Photoshop because I'm used to it. However, Photoshop is quite expensive, so I understand if you want to use free programs, that's definitely a good idea if you can do it. So let's see. There are a lot of sprites in here that I would have to change. Let's see, I don't need these copies anymore, so let me just get rid of these. Well, no. Maybe I should keep them. Let me back this file up. That's probably the way to go about this. Since the last time I modified it was October. Just keep that there as a backup. Then I'll get rid of the stuff that I don't need. Okay. So, there's a lot of sprites here to modify. The player, let's see. Up until now, the player's had 3 lives, just because, I don't know, that's kind of standard video game parlance. Like 3 lives is just kind of a standard thing, but I think I want to switch to 2. And later on implement a system where they can get a life back. In other words, so if I do change the sprite so that, you know, it's missing the clothing or whatever, I can switch it back. If they pick up a power-up item, you know, kind of like how bullets appear or whatever. Maybe when they kill an enemy, there's a chance that it drops, you know, clothes or whatever to come back to life. So let's see. Let's pick an easy sprite to modify. You know what? It's probably just going to be easiest if... I wonder if my version of Photoshop, because I know newer versions of Photoshop allow it. Grouping layers. Nah, I don't want to do that. Create a new group. There we go. So these are standard. Just so I have some organization here, because I'm starting to get a lot of sprites, so it's going to be hard to tell which ones I'm missing, which ones I've done already, etc. So this is damaged. So to be honest, these hurt states are probably always going to be damaged versions, but let's move these into standard first. Duplicates. Move those up into damaged. Okay, so now all my original ones are inside of standard, and I can start working on the new ones inside of here. Just have to make sure to change the name. So let's start with front 00. Let's say damaged front, just to make it easy. Actually, DMG, so I can see the text. DMG shoot front. This will probably not be the most interesting part of this episode, so if you want to skip ahead to, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you want to skip ahead to me not renaming these things, it's probably going to be a better use of your time. I guess I could let you know. I'll let you know at the end of the show too, but I am planning on doing a little bit of a Christmas special. Won't be live, so it won't be on Twitch or anything, but it will go up on YouTube. I am planning to do that. Probably going to create a Christmassy level for the game. Just kind of a little special thing for YouTube. So be on the lookout for that if you're interested. At the moment, not sure if I'm going to do it like a standard episode or if I'm actually going to edit it later and kind of speed up a few parts like this where it's just kind of, you know, tedious doing the same thing over and over again. One thing I do realize doing all these renames is that there's a lot of sprites to edit here for this state. What I could do, I guess, is not worry so much about the shooting ones and the dodging ones and those ones, but focus more on just the primary movement ones, just to make sure that the function itself is working, and then come back and fill in the rest. Because then even if I don't do it all in the course of an episode, I can just fill them in later. PandaBits dropped by. Hello back. Just to give you an update, what I'm doing today is making it so that rather than having lives, a number of lives in the upper left corner of the screen, actually showing how much life the player has left through, you know, the character itself, so that players don't have to keep looking up at the corner to see how much life they have left. Plus, I think it'll make it a little more dramatic too, if you can see on your character that you don't have a second chance coming. So let's get started. One of the things is going to be how much clothing gets stripped off. You know, obviously, let me take you on a tour here. Ghosts and Goblins. What's a good way to search for this? There's no good way to search for this on Google. Who knows what's going to pop up when I do this? Yeah, okay, there we go. At least most of this stuff is safe for work, thankfully. Like in Ghosts and Goblins, the old game, you normally had a suit of armor, but when you took a hit You went into the state where it's like you're just running around with your boxer shorts. Made it really, really clear that you couldn't take another hit. Obviously, without a suit of armor, you look extremely weak. Very clear, very interesting system. Had you worried and all that. Some interesting cosplay or whatever. So I'm trying to do something similar in here. Obviously I have a limit because I am using the Commodore 64 palette, which I guess I should bring up here. And pretty low resolution sprites. So I can't get too fancy. Obviously, you know, I can't make him just all blue because then you don't know where his nose ends and where his body is and all that stuff. So let's see, I could probably strip off the vest just to see what this looks like. If I had another version of blue, maybe it'd be okay. I see my pencil's at some weirdo 70% opacity. No wonder it was looking weird. So if I did give him boxers of some sort, it would look like that. I guess I could keep his shoes on. So that's actually kind of valuable information. Probably the most important thing is to get rid of his cowboy hat. Yeah, that's too much. There we go. And it may be sufficient to just get rid of the hat. The only thing I'm worried about with doing that is that might not be enough because the sprite is awfully small. Ah, and Jamorian dropped by. Yeah, Commodore 64 occupies trip from Panda Bits, but yeah, it's a risky move. Don't want to strip too much clothing off, because then suddenly the game's rating changes, even though it's just this pixel-based game, but I think I can get away with a pair of underwear, so I'll go with that, if I can actually demonstrate it in terms of graphics. And Panda Bits also mentioned going from losing the hat to losing the vest, to losing a shirt and something like that. Definitely, if I want to have multiple levels to those lives, then that's the way to do it. Like right now, I do have 3 lives, so I can drop from, you know, losing the hat to losing, you know, the shirt, and then finally losing pants or whatever. I think for now, what I'm going to do to keep it as simple as possible is to just have 2 lives and allow the player to get more lives later. One thing I think I can do is turn this into just a white shirt. Let's go with a t-shirt. And since the arms are far enough away from the face, I can at least do that. Change the legs to a normal color. So it does look like he's running around with just a t-shirt and boxer shorts. The shoes are kind of weird, I guess. No, but I think I do need the shoes, because otherwise the walking animations and things like that are going to look a little weird. So I'll keep those. Can't really get away with putting a blue neck in here, because then it just looks like his head got bigger. So I think this is about where I want to go. Keep the short shorts so they look like boxers, white t-shirt, get rid of the hat, and expose the arms and some of the leg. I think that's the way to go. Oh, thank you, Pandavits, for mentioning that. I keep forgetting that because Pandavit's mentioned that the sprite was under the banner like that. Yeah, I do keep forgetting that with like the game and stuff like that. The problem is I do have a really old monitor, so it's just a square monitor. But because most people want to watch at, widescreen resolutions, I've just kind of force fit everything to that. So things at the bottom tend to get cut off. And there's a banner at the bottom too, which doesn't help. So yeah, feel free to remind me whenever I'm doing that, because I will forget. Probably the best way to help me remember, is to do something like this so that I know anything that goes below that. There we go. Anything that goes below that is going to get cut off, so that'll help me remember while I'm drawing this stuff. Okay, so that's damage front. Damage shoot back. So this is just going to be a lot of sprite editing. Let's see, make sure I get the right squares here. Doing the easy ones first. Like going for the low-hanging fruit first, and then go for the more complicated stuff later. Okay, one more down. So I think I asked this last week as well, but do you guys have any interesting Christmas plans? Just what you're planning on doing with your vacations, if you have them, or if you've got anything cool planned. Definitely would like to hear about it. Keep me company while I'm doing this very repetitive task. I did accidentally get rid of white, didn't I? And like I said, I'm not going to do all the sprites, I'm just going to do the ones that matter. Actually, having socks might be a good idea. Yeah, it's not bad. If the shoes look weird, I can switch over to socks or something. So, like this hurt state, I'm not going to worry about doing a hurt state yet. Just going to do the standard animation stuff. See, this is why I wanted shoes, because, for example, the fact that the shoe is going back like this is something that can only be demonstrated by two different colors. If that was just a leg, it just looks like his leg is kind of shrinking. So that's why I do need at least a shoe or a sock or something in there. Probably the best way to do this is to do the arms first, then switch over to white before white disappears off my screen. Then bring in the red. And add to the head. Boom, boom. Yeah, before I get rid of white, let me fill in the arms here. With the arms, I don't think it matters as much as the shoes if you lose track of where the hand is, because there is the gun, and that's the only part of the hand that really matters to the player. And last. At least with a low resolution, it's pretty easy to remember what goes where. because the boxers are basically 2 pixels high, so that's easy to remember. Don't need to do the shooting one. I'll worry about that later. I already did front 1. Let me catch up with the chat. And Pandavitz mentions for Christmas plans, so going out with a friend's family as they butcher a pig for their Christmas dinner. Well, that's a good way to get into the Christmas spirit, so that should be interesting. Yes. That is one thing I have never experienced in life, is going out and seeing a pig slaughtered, especially for Christmas. So yeah, that should be interesting indeed. But at least you have an interesting Christmas in store for you, so that's good. And by the way, do mention this recently, but I love it when you guys chime into the chat. Always appreciate it. But for those of you guys who want to lurk or just do something in the background while you watch the show, I don't check the chat for names and start calling people out or anything like that, because no reason to do that. If you just want to sit back and enjoy the show, that's fine. So no worries about that. But feel free to jump into the chat anytime you want to, because I do like chatting with you guys. It makes things like this go a lot faster. Yeah, this might be one of those things when I put it up on YouTube, I'm just gonna fast forward it a little bit. Because the main thing is to change that player game mechanic to showing the hurt state through clothing. That's the important part. I'm sure by now spriting is not something you guys need much information on. Definitely have done it so many times in the past that it's pretty obvious what it entails. Let's see, this is going to be kind of tricky, I guess. Boxers. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. See, if we skip ahead, you wouldn't have a moment like that. We'll see how those boxers work there. May have to trim it back a little bit. Come in a very unfortunate place. Yeah, let's drop the t-shirt down there. Okay. That's better. My poor Tengu Cowboy is getting stripped for the entertainment of the internet. Arms are going to be kind of tricky on these diagonal ones. That should be okay. And let's see. Gotta get rid of the hat. Feels like I'm forgetting to do that sometimes. I'll have to go back through and just check really quick when I'm done that I've done that properly. And Pandavitz asked, did you ever check out One Punch Man? I did check out images. Like Pandavitz sent the link to One Punch Man, which is a manga that I had no idea existed, because my knowledge, despite being over here in Japan, of manga is actually kind of fading on me. But I did check out images online. I haven't actually seen like the manga anywhere where I can get it, so I haven't checked it out in person yet. Like in terms of the actual like the comic. But very, very weird concept. Looks like it's pretty entertaining. And it'll drop the shirt down again. Better change the arms first so I remember where they are. And last bit's getting rid of the extra parts of the hat. Okay, that looks alright. Shoot. Don't have to worry about shooting upright, just have to worry about moving upright. Learn my lesson, do the arms first. Do the legs next. Yeah, that's probably about right. The diagonal's a little bit trickier because I have to figure out where the boxer shorts kind of end and where the t-shirt begins. Just to check, do you read One Punch Man, or was it just something that you know about? Like, if it is actually an interesting manga, I will try to hunt it down. Not sure how well known it is in the States, but if you do like interesting manga, one thing that, it's been big in Japan for a while now, but they had movies and live action movies and everything else. It's called Gantz. Just not Gaunt. Not Gaunt chart, Gantz. This one. It's actually extremely interesting. I kind of fell out of manga and anime quite a bit, but this one, someone recommended it to me, and it's actually really good. Interesting concept. Basically, all these people who should have died kind of end up in this apartment room that they can't get out of with this giant black ball that gives them instructions to kill aliens. Sounds weird, but it actually turns into something very interesting. And there's a live action version, so if you want to catch that just as a normal movie, that's another option. That would be my recommendation. But, for all I know, it's big in the States too, but don't have much access to knowledge about what's going on in the States. Let's see, what is going on here? His foot is forward. This is just one of those things I'm going to have to spot out, I guess. What looks normal. Well, it is a single layer here, so it probably should be a single layer here, so it doesn't look like his boxer shorts are growing and shrinking. Let's do it that way. Kind of looks like he's got a little bit of bagginess in the back, so I have to think about that one a little bit. Kind of step back from it. Let's see, it does look like a little bit of bagginess in the back. Is it worth cutting that pixel out? Yeah, and then it kind of looks like he has bikini briefs or something, so we'll leave it for now. See how it looks in game. If it looks weird, I'll trim it off or something. Lovely, this one looks even trickier. Boom. Okay. Well, let's keep that layer of boxer. Because these are the two frames that are going to be going into each other, so I kind of want them to match up. Well, there's a frame in between. There is this frame. So I guess I should worry about these two. Let's see, I could probably get away with something like this. No, probably should have something in the front there. Yeah, because that's too much boxer. It's going to be going from that to that. I guess I could have the t-shirt dangling a little bit, so I'll bring the t-shirt down a bit. So bring it down there. And then there's the part in the middle, which is probably fine. Yeah, okay. Let's try that. Okay, that looks all right. Tokyo Ghoul. PandaBits mentions a manga called Tokyo Ghoul. Well, yeah, even just putting in Tokyo, for some reason Tokyo Ghoul is the thing that comes up, so it must be really big if that's the biggest related topic to Tokyo. Of course, Google's like gathering information on my preferences and every other creepy thing that Google does, but so I'm sure they realize that I'm looking up manga or whatever, and that's probably why they suggested that. Let me images. That's what I want to look at. Okay, so if I'm looking for this in Japan, this is what I have to look for. And even in Japanese, even though it's got, kanji characters, it's still just Tokyo Guru, because in Japan they can do things like with characters where, because they're pictograms, they can just kind of put whatever reading they want to it if they want to do something cool. It's kind of, like Metal Gear Solid does that a lot. If you see the Japanese version, they always have like the text above like the Chinese characters, the Japanese, the fancy characters as opposed to the basic alphabet. They do that a lot in Metal Gear Solid to have like double meanings to words and stuff. And I'm sure, whoever translates those things has to have a heck of a time with that stuff, because you can't get double meanings into an English word because there's no pictograms, it's just letters. But, there are workarounds to that. But this actually looks rather interesting. I'll have to check this out. Thank you for letting me know what's popular in the States. I'm so off when it comes to what's going on over there. Okay, that's fine. Damage down right. Getting there. Almost to the end here. Because there's just these dead ones left and dodging and stuff like that, and I don't have to worry about that. So 3 more. And I can get back to the putting it into the game stuff. But you have heard of Gaunt's. Okay. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Need to know where the boxers begin. I'll try it with that for now. Does that look alright? Yeah, it should be okay. Just have the t-shirt kind of hanging down there a bit. Should be okay. Yeah, I'll just have to see it in game. Know right away whether it looks weird or not if I see it in game. Let's see, that's that. That's too much. So I need to get rid of those ones, I think. I'll leave that bit so I know where to put the boxers. There's something about spriting that is kind of relaxing. Just kind of get in the zone and do it. Cuts down on my chattiness too. I suppose that's one good thing about it. One, two, three. Yeah, I'll just shave off the extra pixels here. That's probably not worth having. And leave that bit so I know where to put the boxers. Let's see. It's going forward. This has to connect to this. Okay, that's connected. Let's see, did I do everything I need to do with that? Yeah. Okay. Alright, I think that's all I need. I might have to come back and fix some of these sprites, because that one it looks like the neck's a little too high, for example. But we'll see what they look like in game. And let's see, catch up on chat. So Tokyo Ghoul is freaky as hell, cannibalism and stuff. I can't read it. Well, you know, I love the horror genre in general. I mean, that's probably my favorite genre, especially over here in Japan, so I'll give it a shot. And Gambit Animating mentions, what program are you making the game in? Thank you for covering me on that one, Pandavits. Yes, Game Maker Studio. I use the Studio version, so it's not like the older version. Makes 2D game making extremely easy to do. You know, some people like it, some people don't. You know, some people prefer to go full force with like Unity and things like that. You know, I just kind of like it because it's about the right tool for what I'm trying to make here anyway. Because I have used Unity and Unreal and all that stuff, but I think for this kind of game, I think Game Maker is what I want to do because I am, you know, doing all the graphics and everything else by myself here, so it does make sense to try and keep it as easy as possible. And they do have a holiday sale, so if you're interested in Game Maker, now's a good time to pick it up. The free version, I think they give away standard for free now, because it used to be there was a free edition, a standard edition, and a pro edition, and there were some minor differences between those. The biggest difference is probably between like standard and pro, because I think pro is the one that gives you all like the shading and stuff like that, and a lot of the ability to use modules. So if you want to put your game out on like iOS and all that stuff, it is kind of a weird pricing thing because you have to buy all these like extra modules to put it out on other platforms, and that's where it kind of gets expensive. In terms of just making the game on like PC or whatever, it's not expensive at all, especially if it's on sale. I think Pro can go down to like 5,000, not 5,000 yen. Thinking in yen here, but like $50 or $60 or something like that. It's just those modules. Like if you want to put it out on iOS, then you have to buy some, you know, $100 module that allows you to compile stuff on iOS. But since I'm talking out of my memory, let's just see what they have to say. So the holiday sale started started today actually. So 60% reduction on Game Maker Studio Professional, which I guess, yeah, before they had free, standard, and professional. Now it's just standard and professional. Standard is free, so if you want to try it, standard's the way to go. And they've also got this Master Collection thing, which I think has all the modules and stuff in it, but it's really expensive. And these are like those individual export modules. There are also other like programs that are pretty good for making like 2D games if you're interested in just 2D games. For example, Construct 2. Let's see if I can pronounce it right. Coco's X 2D or something like that. And there are other options out there. And Unity, of course, can do 2D games as well. So let's save these sprites out. What's the best way to do this? I guess I'd just save them out individually. Boom. All right. Because I do have like a Photoshop script that'll just save out all the layers to individual PNG files, but I don't really want to overwrite all these other ones and have to worry about naming stuff. So I'm just going to do it the hard way. Shoot back 0, 0. Damage back. Yeah, I guess I did shoot back even though I didn't need to do shoot back. So this is just damage back 0, 0. And next is just damage back 0, 1, which is the second frame in the back animation. Yep. Damage back 3, which is the fourth frame in animation because I used the same starting frame twice. So I skipped 2. Damage front. Damage front 1. So I should be getting back into GameMaker not too long. Once I get these files named and saved out, I should be able to jump over into GameMaker, and the rest of the day we'll be working with GameMaker. So you don't have to cringe at my horrible art skills for too much longer. 4. Oh, that's interesting. It should actually be 3. Let me change that. Damage right. Damage right, the second one. Oops, I want to do that. Damage right, the third one. Or the fourth frame, I guess I should say. Damage uprights. Be really bad to make a mistake with the naming, because then I'll never figure out why my sprite looks weird. 3. Down right. Copy and paste those names so I can at least save me a little bit of time. Let's see. And Gambit Animating says I'm the person who doesn't like Unity. Yeah, I can understand that. There are things I really like about Unity and things I really don't like about it. Especially like working on my own, it's just a lot of extra work, especially for like 2D and stuff. I don't know, it's just more work to do stuff in get it kind of set up. Because it is such a powerful program, you know, like anything else that's powerful, it has a lot of features, which means if you only want to do a small subset of those features, it's kind of overkill. But Gambit also posted a link in the Twitch feed, so let me actually head on over there. Let's jump over here. Boom. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Gambit Animating says I'm the person who doesn't. I like Unity. Okay, so you like Unity. Alright. Alright, let me give your game a shot here. Tengu. Okay, that's pretty awesome. Okay, let's get some ramps going here. Okay, I'm going backwards. Okay, and there's flipping. Alright, let's see. See if I can get my car back up. Z and X to spin. Sorry about that. I think I flipped my car on you. If there's zero gravity, okay, let's see. Zero gravity. Let me restart that. Okay, so let's see. A and X to join and stuff like that. Yep, I'm connected. Alright, let's get a good ramp. I'll get back to my game right after doing this. Just have to flip the car. Awesome. No. Ah. Okay, well, I will post that link on the video if you guys are interested in trying that out. Do want to get back to making the game, but thank you for posting the link of your stuff. The rest of you guys, yeah, if you have stuff that you're working on, definitely post it in the feed. I do like playing stuff. I'm easily distracted, to the detriment of the people who are trying to watch the show, probably. Okay, downright 3. I think that's the last one. Oh, I already did that one. Okay. Well, I'll replace it anyway. Okay, let's go over into Game Maker and get this stuff in there. Thank you for the distraction, by the way. Very cool flipping mechanic. And you've already got like connecting working with multiple players, which is awesome. So let's create another group in here for damage, because otherwise I'll have too much going on. So let's see. The things I need to copy are these. So let's duplicate that. Sprite player damage up. And let's start picking out the sprites. This is also going to be kind of a time-consuming process. Hopefully I can get it done fairly quickly. Damage up. That's upright. Probably should have saved these out to a different folder to make this a little easier. Damage up is back, sorry. So damage up means damage back 0, 0. Alright, so damage back 0, 0, that's fine. Move that into here. Player damage down, and that's going to be front. So damage front, 0, 0. Just to get me started. There's animation frames in there too, so I have to worry about that. Damage upright. That one's just upright. 0, 0. Okay, good. Next is downright. Thankfully I mirror things so I don't have to do left and right at the same time. I just have to do one of them and flip it. Player damage down right. Damage down right 0, 0. Okay, that's that. And right. Damage right. Damage right 0, 0. Okay, that's that. Okay, now I have to add the animation frames in there. Let's see. Number of sub-images 4. Let's just make sure I know what I'm doing here. Okay, so I just add them in there. So up, let's see, up, right, down, right. I'm missing one here. What happened to my down right? Did I just not copy that one? Let me copy that. Sprite, player, damage, down right. Okay. Something with that already exists. Oh, okay, I just didn't copy it into the folder. Came up short. There we go. See, it'd be nice if I could keep this in the same order. There we go. So up, down, right, down, right, right. Got it. Alright, so now I need to add those extra bits of animation. So file, add from file. And this is up. So this will be back 0, 1, damage back 0, 1. And then I need to add damage back 0, 0 again. Back 0, oh, that's dead back. Damage back 0, 0 again. And then damage back 0, 3. Damage back 0, 3. Okay, that's that animation. Hopefully that didn't change any of my collision stuff. Okay, good. This will be front, so next thing is to add front 0, 1, damage front 0, 1. That one. Damage front 0, 0. Damage front 0, 3. Yeah, sorry if I'm letting you guys go in the chat. I don't want to mess this up, so I'm just kind of focusing on the screen for now. I'll catch up as soon as I finish this off. Let's see, this is upright. So upright 0, 1, damage upright 0, 1. Damage upright 0, 0. And damage upright 0, 3. And then downright. So damage downright 0, 1. By the way, if you hear that weird like tinny whistle that happens once in a while, that's just the heater going off. It is extremely cold over here in Japan right now. I'm sure it's cold everywhere. It is winter, for the northern hemisphere anyway. It's probably nice and toasty if you're in Australia or New Zealand watching this. And just damn tone, right? 0, 1. 0, 0. Downright 0, 0, and then 0, 3. Damage downright 0, 3. Okay. And last one, damage right. Oops, don't want to load sprite, I want to add. So damage right 0, 1. Damage right 0, 0. Damage right 0, 3. Okay. Now I should have all the sprites I need. Now it's just a matter of actually getting them over into the player object. So I should do the same thing I do with that I did with Photoshop, and that's shrink the screen down and bring it up so that it's always visible, or at least I can remember where it's visible. So about down to there is how much you can see. So I'll keep track of that. Let's see, damage, let's just copy that, damage up. So as long as I'm above here, you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So objects, the player is an actor in here, so I go in there, and open up Player Act. And all that sprite drawing stuff goes into the draw event, so determine the right sprite to draw. So I'm going to need a new state, which says whether the player has lives or not. Whether it's a state or whether I can just look at the lives variable. I may just be able to look at the lives variable. Let me make sure. I better keep track of that so that I can remember to look it up later. Let's see, damaged lives, GameMaker lives code. I think it's just going to be a variable called lives, but I just want to make sure, because otherwise bad things will happen. Yeah, okay. So this is actually a good warning for those of you who are interested in using GameMaker. GameMaker has a lot of like variables that are just kind of, all-purpose variables. They're in every project automatically. So if you accidentally use one of those variables, you're going to get some weird results. For example, direction, gravity, speed, score, lives, x, y. Any of those are just kind of built into the object, so you don't even have to declare them or anything. They're just there. But it's also something you have to be careful about. So the variable I want is lives, because I am using it already. Like when I do play the game, just wanted to make sure my Twitch feed is working, because I hear a lot of clicking going on with my modem, and that's freaking me out a little bit. But like up here, I am using the lives variable to keep track of how many of these heads to show, for example, and when the game is over. So what I should do is I'm not going to worry about dodge and hurt or dead, because if the player's dead, they're dead. And I'm not going to worry about shoot, because I can fill that stuff in later. The thing I have to worry about is in here. So if lives, yeah, see, it already filled it in red. Sprite index, image x scale, those are also variables that are just automatically included. So if lives is greater than 1, so if the player has more than 1 life left, then business as usual, show the cowboy with all the clothing. Otherwise, show that new one, which is sprite player damage up. Okay, well that shouldn't be too bad a change. It'd be nice if this just kind of works. Might be less work than I expected. Oh, whoops! I don't want to move the image X scale out. That's going to be the same. Player damage upright. It's probably faster to type than to even copy and paste it. Sprite player damage right. Okay. Yeah, I think this will work just fine. Not sure why I'm putting that weird space in there, but guess I'm just in a spacing mood. Damage down right. If this is greater than 1. By the way, I'm not sure how many of you guys are actually watching the YouTube videos in addition to like the Twitch feed. But if you are watching like the videos, definitely leave a comment on them or something. I just want to make sure know who's out there like watching the videos and stuff. I'm just curious about like who's watching. So if you don't mind, of course, definitely appreciate comments. One person has been commenting, and that person's the same person that voted on like the Trello tasks and stuff, which is an interesting concept. So if you guys are interested in voting on tasks, you can head over to well, if you look up Trello and Project Spaghetti, you'll find the task list, but you can vote on that stuff. Player damage, right? Before someone calls me out on that one. That's what happens when I get chatty. It's hard to do code and chat at the same time, but I don't want to just leave you guys wondering what's going on. Sprite player damage uprights. And this image X scale is, when it's set to -1, it just mirrors the sprite, which is how I'm getting up left out of, the upright sprite. It just flips it. So for now, that's probably all I need. It might actually just work as is. We shall see. Move this up so you guys can see it. Okay, so I've got my clothed version of the Cowboy. Let's see what happens when he runs out of lives. Obviously, the first life is still greater than 1, so that doesn't change anything. There we go. So now he's missing his hat, he's missing his vest, he's missing his pants. It's pretty obvious he's about to die. So when you're in this state, you want to do whatever is possible to avoid bullets, because if you run out of lives, yeah, you get to continue the level where you left off, but 1, you have to start the level over again, and 2, you lose all your points. So when you've got nothing but your boxers on, it's time to step up your game. And obviously, since I didn't change the sprites for ducking and shooting and all that stuff, if he shoots, he goes back to the normal sprite. So that's something I can work on later. And I shot myself. Okay. So that was actually much easier than I expected. That actually got done. Wow. It's nice to actually have a task that gets done, rather than having unexpected complications like last week, where the one of the users in the chat feed definitely helped me out a lot with that one. And just for you guys out there, a hint is that the keyboard, depending on how your keyboard is laid out, I wish I could bring it up to show it in front of the camera, but there's, well, let's do it in Paintbrush. You've got your up key, your left key, your right key, your down key, and then you've got space and stuff over here. What was going on last week was, because these things are probably all on one wire or something like that going into whatever's happening, I could do these two at the same time, but I couldn't do space, which is dodge, and these two at the same time. I could do that, but I couldn't do space and these two, for example, at the same time. And it's just a fact of hardware with keyboards. And I'm actually kind of lucky that I had a cheap keyboard, because, a lot of people out there have cheap keyboards. Who wants to spend money on a keyboard? So, it was good I recognized that, because otherwise I would have made the game for it, assuming that it would work, and everyone's wondering why they can't dodge and stuff. The final solution we went with last week was, let's see, I think it was Shift. Yeah, Shift. Shift works with multiple keys, so Shift also works as a dodge. So I can hit Shift and these two keys at the same time, whatever two keys I want at the same time. That was the solution to that. So let's see. Missing hat, rough. Well, more than missing hat, I guess it's more missing clothing. I suppose if I do want to do 3 lives, I could do a missing hat and then switch over. I'll have to think about it. My gut feeling is that it's probably better to let me see, set lives to 2. My gut feeling is that it's probably a better idea to set the lives to 2, so that there's only 2 states. You're either somewhat safe or you're not safe. And I think that's going to be really clear to the player, just like it is in Ghosts and Goblins. I mean, later Ghosts and Goblins added golden suits of armor and stuff like that, but it was really clear. You're either able to take a hit or you're not able to take a hit. And I think as long as I provide ways for the players to get another life, I think that's probably the way to go. It's going to create more situations where they're in danger, because there's not really much of a difference between having 3 lives and 2 lives, you still can take another hit. You know, psychologically, you're still kind of in this safe zone. So I probably just want to go with 2. But in the future, if I do want to go with 3, probably just having the hat disappear is one way to do that. So since I did get those 2 out of the way and I still have time, one other thing I wanted to do in the future was while the player's like hit and like down on the ground, you know, that's fine. You know, just like with the dodge that I did last week, before when you dodged, that's all you could do. You hit the space bar, you start dodging, and until you pop back up again, you can't do anything. I thought that was kind of, you know, I want to give the player choices, so that's why I implemented where the player could actually move when they dodge. And I think I kind of want to do the same thing when the player's hurt, which is this state. I'll show that again. So, for example, if the player hits himself with a bullet, he's down on the ground, can't do anything. I think what I want to do is, let me show why I want to change that first. For example, things like that can happen. Because the player has no control over when they get up from that hurt state, and they can't move or do anything in that hurt state, it's a little unfair because the player could, you know, be in a situation where they're stuck on the ground, they're about to pop up, and a bullet's coming right for them, and they're just looking at it going, "Oh, great, I'm just going to die." So they just have to wait for that death, and that's not fun. So what I could do, and what I want to do, is make it so that stretch out that time when they're hurt and on the ground, which makes them invincible. Keep them on the ground for longer, but give them the chance to wail on a button to get up faster. So, for example, if they see a bullet coming from the side and it's like, well, you know, if I wait until I get up naturally, that bullet's probably going to hit me in the face. So what I should do is wail on the button, get up, and then get out of the way. You know, just add that extra choice in there. Give the player something to do when they're down on the ground as well. A lot of first-person shooters recently, at least, you know, in the past 10 years, you can tell how old I am when I think of the last 10 years as recent. A lot of them do this where it's like you're down on the ground and you're bleeding out or something, and you can wail on a button to either bleed out faster or hold on longer. You know, things like that. It gives you something to do while you're just kind of down on the ground, crawling about. And they do things like, you know, I think Gears is one prime example. If you're down on the ground, you can even move while you're down on the ground. So, for example, if you ran out into the middle of a bunch of locusts, got yourself shot in the face, you're lying on the ground, and all your buddies who are smart are sitting behind like barriers and stuff, shooting the locusts from a distance. You know, happens to me a lot because I like to play the hero and get myself killed a lot to the chagrin of my teammates, but you're allowed to crawl back to them. As humiliating as it is, it beats, you know, just dying in the middle of a field because no one wants to take the risk to come out and fetch you. But for now, I don't think I'm going to do the crawl while you're hurt thing. I'm just going to do the wail on it to get up faster thing. So that's what this task is, and I'll bring it over to here to episode 25 because I did finish these ones in advance. I could go back and fill in the rest of the sprites, but I don't think you guys want to see that, so an hour of that is probably enough. So I'll fill those in later, but this will be player stuff. Let me catch up to the chat as well. Yes, and Panovitz, something into the game with no cryptic errors. Definitely beats what happened like last week, or was it last week? It must have been last week, or the week before, where it was just the game maker said something's wrong, basically the equivalent of that message, and it's like, that wasn't very, very useful. Yeah, it was nice to actually have something just work like that. And yeah, lowering the lives to 2 makes it harder, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And you could keep that as a punishment against their own bullets. Definitely. So let's see. The thing that controls how long they're hurt is, let's see, let's trace through this here. Get rid of this in the background. When they get hit by a bullet, for example, here it says if they're not dodging, they're not hurt, and they're not dead, then basically take a life away, and if there are no lives left, then it's game over. That's how that stuff works. But if they do have a life left and they get hit, then it sends them into this hurt state, which is PL hurt, sets that to true. The knockback stuff, that's just a comment. I tried out knockback based on, a great lecture by like Vlambeer on, improving your games and stuff like that. And I think one of the things was knockback, and I thought, that might be a good idea. But, when I tried it out, it didn't really work with a top-down shooter, especially this one. It's kind of retro and pixel perfect and stuff. Well, it's not pixel perfect, but it's got a retro look, so it doesn't really work with knockback and stuff. So I kept that out, but I just leave the comment in here because if I do want to reintroduce it, this is where I reintroduce it. But the thing that controls how long the player is knocked out is this recovery time. And it shows, the star effect or whatever until, alarm number 3 goes off. And when alarm number 3 goes off, it sets the hurt state to false, which means the player's no longer hurt. And you can get up and you can move and all that stuff. So the thing I'm going to need to change if I'm going to have the player get up faster is I have to cut down on that alarm 3 time every time they wail on a button. I think the one that makes sense is the dodge button. So right now I have let's see, shift and space are attached to dodge. Let's see, shift. Yeah, I don't need this debug message that just says shift. Let's get rid of that. And what else is different in here? Dodge. Yeah, I don't need that. Okay. Now these should be almost the same. Okay, now they're the same thing. So probably what's going to work best is if the player can wail on the dodge button to get up faster. Because, it is kind of that action. They want to dodge a bullet, which is why they're trying to get up faster. So I think it makes logical sense to attach it to that. So in this case, as long as they're able to dodge, this stuff can go off. That kind of makes me curious if there's something buggy. Because what happens now if they are hurt and they do dodge? Maybe it's something I've never actually tried before. Yeah, okay, they can dodge, so that's no good. Do need to prevent that from happening. So in addition to dodge cooldown being this, the player also can't be in the hurt state. And obviously, if they're dead, they're not going to be able to dodge, so let's throw that one in there too. So if they're not hurt, they're not dead. What else? Not hurt, not dead. Dodge is okay because there's the timer going on, so that's fine. So let me copy this over into both places. And just make sure I fix that error before I start adding more functionality. So now if he's down on the ground, he shouldn't be able to dodge. Good. Alright, so the thing I want to do is, if they are, else, if the player is hurt, and well, let's just say not dead, just in case. Make sure I get all my brackets first before I start adding stuff. So if they are hurt and they're not dead, then the player can hit the space button and have something happen. And what's going to happen is, let's see, should I do this in script? I think I had some notes in here. When I was just thinking about this, it's like, oh, well, if I did something like this, it'd be fine. And I think someone online also had something like this, which kind of got me onto the using the max thing, because you never want the alarm to drop below 1, because then it'll never go off. But for example, if I did -1, because the alarm is based on frames, it just means every time you hit the space button, it shortens that hurt state by a frame, which is probably too little, but I'm going to try it with that first. So let's just basically pop that in, and it's alarm number 3, which does the, oops, not 4, 3, which does that. Shorten the recover alarm, I guess is the way to call it, which is alarm number 3. Shorten it by, at the moment, a frame, but in the future I'm going to want to make that one of the variables that I can change. I shouldn't say variable, constants I can change. And I'll call that speed up. So I'll add that in here. The nice thing about constants, for those of you who've seen past episodes, you know exactly what this is, but what this is you can use these names, and wherever this name appears in your code, it just switches it out with this value when it runs. The nice thing about doing this as opposed to variables is this doesn't cost you anything in terms of processing or memory. It just literally replaces these names with numbers. So rather than use global variables, it's better to use constants if it's not something that changes. So let's see, add player dodge speed up. For now, I said 1 frame, but let's try 2 frames. So every time I hit the spacebar, it'll speed that alarm up by 2 frames. And what else do I want to do? Oh yeah, just so I remember in the future what that constant does, I should probably come over here into scripts, settings. This is all commented out, but it just so I remember what the constants are, I just list them all in here. So the number of frames to shortcut the hurt state to recovery. Okay, so now in the future when I see that, I'll know exactly what it is. And I only did that for the spacebar, but I want to also do it for shift. So I just have to copy that over. And I do need to comment this part. Shortcut the hurt animation. And basically copy all of that over into shift. And this is one thing I don't like about GameMaker. When you paste something at the end, it doesn't let you just append it to the end. It has to go in somewhere, so kind of screws that stuff up. So now it should allow me to shortcut that hurt animation. Probably won't be very easy to tell because it's already very short. But let's see. Yeah. One other thing. Just noticed there is that as soon as they get up, they can duck. Not sure if that's a good idea. There should be a cooldown on that, really. Because otherwise, there's no motivation to just get up naturally. Otherwise, the best thing you can do is just keep wailing on that, because as soon as you get up, you'll duck again, which means if there's a bullet coming for you, you can dodge it. So probably what I want to do is, let's see, set PL dodge cooldown to 0. When the player gets up, I want to reset that dodge cooldown. And the player gets up, as we said, in alarm 3. So let's see if that works. And Pandabits mentions restarting furnaces takes time, but it also reminded me that Free and another anime were popular here for a bit. I think it's Kuroko no Basuke. Okay. I'll look that up as soon as I test this out. Okay, good. Really hard to tell what's going on there, but kill myself here. This time, when I'm getting up from that dodge state, I'm wailing on the button, but it won't let me dodge until that cooldown stops. I need to kill myself again here. Actually, I'll give myself unlimited lives. That's the way to go. So I hit F8, which is just to give me unlimited lives. Wailing on the spacebar, and the cooldown resets when he gets up so that I can't dodge right away, which is good. Might be a little too long, though. It's a little too long so that the player thinks that maybe something's going wrong. So I don't want it to be just 0, probably. Let's see. So rather than setting dodge cooldown to 0, what I should do is set it to something like this. PL dodge cooldown. Because room speed, which is the number of frames per second, times dodge cooldown, which is the number of seconds it takes for the dodge to cool down, as long as the counter has gone past that, you're able to dodge again. So if I set the dodge cooldown to 0, it takes exactly that amount of time when the player gets up from the hurt state to be able to dodge again. Probably want something in between so that the player feels like when they are wailing on the button and get up, they don't just dodge right away, but it doesn't feel like a bug, because right now it feels like a bug. So I have to find that sweet spot. Let's try dividing it by 2. Make sure I copy that over into here. Want it to be just enough where they can't get away with dodging right off the bat, but not to where it feels like something's broken. Yeah, it's still too much. Space. What I could do, I guess, is create a different global variable. No, but I want these to be related, because it should always be some factor of dodge cooldown. 1.2 maybe. Just so it shaves a little bit of time off. So that they're almost ready to dodge again, but they're just not quite there. Let me give myself unlimited lives again. I don't think it's working. Let's see. Trim speed times dodge cooldown. One way I can check if it's working is to just set this without the divisor. Because theoretically this means that I should be able to dodge right away. Oops. And unlimited lives. Move that up. Okay. Yeah, something's going on with the dodge cooldown that's resetting it. Oh, whoops. It's in here that I'm doing that stuff. Okay, never mind. It's not here. So this is still the same. My bad. I was updating the wrong place. This dodge cooldown should be 0 because this is what happens when you just dodge. So let me copy that. It's alarm 3 where I want to be setting this thing. My bad. Ignore the last 5 minutes there. So let's try this divided by 2. So that they're halfway to the point where they can dodge again when they get up. And Panavitz mentions if there's laser enemies later or ones that fire out a large amount of bullets, it might be better to wait For the danger to pass, exactly. Like if there's a stream of bullets or something, you don't want to get up right away because then you're going to get hit by one of them. The laser is definitely a good example of a time where you might want to just stay on the ground for a while. Yeah, divided by 2 is not too bad. Not too bad. Because I'm with... Let's see, well, I dodged that one actually. So you can't see what I'm doing on the keyboard, but I will be wailing on the dodge button the whole time. So it does feel like there's a little bit of a delay after getting up where I can't dodge right away, which is good. The ghosts will be a good place to test it out. Oops. Yeah, divided by 2 is actually not that bad. It's probably one of those things where it just needs a little bit of adjustment, whether it feels too long or too short. It's just a touch too long. Just a touch. It's just barely long enough where it feels like, wait a minute, my dodge isn't working. So let's see. Something less than 2. And this should also be a constant so that I can change it later. I'm going to try dividing by 1.8 just to give that a little bit of extra quickness to the dodge when you get up again. Yeah, that's about right. That is not too bad. So let me make that a constant so I can remember that I can change this later if I need to. Add player recover dodge delay factor. What should I call it? Dodge recovery delay factor. That's a little long. Recover delay. Recover dodge delay. Let's just call it dodge delay. Dodge delay factor. PL. Recover delay factor. If I don't say factor, then I'm going to think this is like a time value, so I need to, as long-winded as that is, I think I do have to go with that. So let's do that. Add it to my thing so I know that I have this constant available. So PL recover delay factor. Let's see, what's the best way to describe this? The amount of, not the amount of time, but the buffer before being able to dodge after recovery. And 1 means you're able to dodge right away. Let's put this on a separate line. 1 is you're able to dodge right away. 0 it means it's just like, well, divide by 0. I don't want 0. Should never put 0 on there because it'll cause the program to just crash. That's no good. Basically, the higher this number is, the longer it's going to take. It takes longer to be able to dodge. And I should be able to remember what that means when I come in here. Let me just make sure I didn't mess something up with the constant. Should be okay. Okay, give myself unlimited lives again. Okay, everything's still working. So that's pretty good. I'm glad that worked out too. I'm on a roll today. It's nice to get some stuff done. Okay. The boss cowboy that I've been thinking about Still have to think about that gameplay a bit. So in terms of another thing I can do with the player is also have a quick reload with a risk mechanic. Not too sure about this one. I will think about it for a bit. I do need to take a break to recharge my water and stuff like that. So I'm going to play that animated short that I always play every week. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's the thing that came at the beginning of the show. So I'm going to play that, take a quick break, and think about what I'm going to do with my last couple of minutes here. Probably should be something short so that I don't take too much of your guys' time. But I will be right back after this break. Hope you don't mind the animated short. It should be around, I guess, 7 or 8 minutes before I get back. So I will see you very soon. And I'm also going to look up Kuroko no Basuke from PandaBits. Thank you for waiting while I took that break. Was thinking about what I can do with the gun mechanic. Going over here to the task list. I do have it here as a task because one thing I mentioned, like over at the site, bluetengu.com. Let's see, revisiting player mechanics, just the post that's at the top right now. Some other ways I was thinking of, being able to give the player more choice was, wailing on buttons to end the hurt state early. That was fine. One thing I do need to do, actually, probably, is change that hurt state so that it's longer, because right now it's a little too fast. So let me do that first. Let's see. That is, if they get hit by a bullet, then recovery time. So I need to change recovery time. Instead of 1 second, I will make it 1.5 seconds. Just so that there's a little bit longer of a range for players to get up during. So I should actually be making sure that that actually works. So 1.5, get up, as opposed to wailing on the button, which gets up a little faster. Could probably change that a little bit. Dodge speed up. Let's change it to 3 frames, maybe, so that it speeds that alarm up by 3 frames. Just that it feels very different when you're wailing on the button as opposed to not wailing on it. Yeah, that's much faster. As opposed to, I just turned invincibility on, by the way. As opposed to just waiting around, which takes quite a while. So there's a little bit more of a difference there. May need to stretch that out even more in the future. I'll try it out. But some of the other things kind of thought about were like forcing the player to collect points from falling enemies within a time limit rather than just earning them when a player dies. Right now it's pretty arcadey in that as soon as you shoot an enemy, you get the score for killing that enemy, which is, the standard arcade way to go. Let me turn invincibility on again. So for example, if I shoot this guy, well, he'll duck first, but I get my 100 points regardless of what I'm doing. But one other option is to have it where I have to go run over here and collect those points. There's advantages and disadvantages to that. Just kind of depends on the game. Let me jump to the graveyard level where it's a little safer. There's probably advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is it adds just that little extra layer of decision making that players have to do, like, whether they go over and grab the points even though there's a bunch of enemies and lasers and bullets going off in that area, or whether they stay behind, stay safe, live to fight another day. Most games implement this as like pickups, for example. Like if you have like a top-down shooter or something, it's very intentional the way they do it. Usually, if you defeat a certain group of enemies or something, or a swarm, they'll leave behind like a power-up. You have to go over and get that power-up. A lot of times they'll design it where that power-up is actually going to put you in danger. Usually, you're shooting enemies towards the top of the screen, but you don't want to be at the top of the screen. But to collect that power-up, maybe you have to go up or something. It just adds that little extra bit of risk factor, but the player makes the decision. One other reason they do that is so that you can pick which power-ups you pick up, obviously. But, that's for power-ups. In terms of points, some games do it where you have to pick up the points. Kind of waffling about whether it's worth doing in here or not. Part of me thinks this is more of an arcade kind of game. It is kind of harkening back to like Commodore 64, which is why I went with the palette I went with. So part of me thinks that's a little too much. Plus, I don't know. Like if you kill a bunch of enemies and your score's not going up, it just feels kind of weird. One other thing I have been thinking about, just to let you know, drop that site, is, down here towards the bottom, later priority tasks, brushing up comes first, but later on there's other options. For example, the person who posted on like the YouTube video mentioned having like, challenge mode puzzle rooms. Let me get his name right. If you're on G, mentioned, if there's a challenge mode where the screen is like a whole bunch of cacti, which are those things that fire off like spines and stuff. There's a bunch of things down here, and one thing I was thinking of was, for example, having maybe a shop, or having things where you can turn in coins, stuff like that. If that's the case, then maybe I could separate those two things out, where you get the points for killing the enemy, but if you want the coins they drop, you have to go and get them, which puts you in danger, which is probably the best way to go. So in terms of that mechanic, I don't think I want to have the player going and collecting their score, because that feels a little weird. I guess I'm dying over here. In terms of the quick reload, I put that in the task list because I thought it would be a good idea. But one thing about that, it's kind of a Gears of War inspired thing. One thing that Gears did really well, I thought, in terms of kind of updating the multiplayer FPS genre is, in most games, at the very beginning, you had like Wolfenstein and Doom and things like that, where it was just, as long as you hold down the button, you shoot. There's no reason not to hold down the button. Later games did have things where it's like it gave you a little advantage to not just holding down the button. You had reloads and things like that. But what Gears did really well is, let's see if there's an image of it. They added something called the active reload. Perfect. This is the best image, I think, thanks to Pradnik. But what they did, hopefully you guys can see that, is when you do run out of ammo, this bar starts to go across the screen. If you happen to hit the reload button right when the bar hits this spot, you get this thing called, active reload or perfect reload, depending on what you hit. But what it does is, instead of having to wait all the way for it to get to here to reload, you can reload right away. And if you get a perfect reload, your bullets are more powerful for the rest of that clip. So it adds a lot to multiplayer. It works especially in this game, Gears of War, because when you do it, when you're in multiplayer or when you're fighting enemies, there's a lot of stuff going on at the screen at once, and you're kind of in a panic state. So even though it's theoretically, like any golf game, shoot, even going back probably to the Commodore 64, but golf swing bar. Yeah, I don't know. Should be careful about putting swing bar in golf. Yes, exactly. There we go. Pangea Golf. All right. So, for example, like a lot of golf games do the exact same thing, and I'm not sure if, Cliffy B or whoever designed the system got it from a golf game, but basically golf has long had this thing where, you pull back on the swing, and if you hit the sweet spot, you can go farther. Basically, Gears of War put that into this. And the thing that works with Gears of War is the fact that you're in a panic state, so it's not as easy to do in a golf game because you're thinking around, you're trying to aim, you're trying to do all this other stuff. You've got a million things going on at the same time as you're trying to get this active reload, so you mess up a lot. And if you mess up, it takes longer to reload, etc. So there's kind of a punishment for that. I was thinking of something like that for this game, but the thing that kind of gets me wondering about it is if you did have something, you would have to show a bar to do that. Because right now, you can just shoot. And if I hold down the button, I can charge shots, for example. So that's fine, but if I were to have an active reload mechanic, I'd have to have something that shows the player that they are, getting it right or getting it wrong, which means sound effects, one, but sound effects are not enough because there are players out there who can't hear, obviously, or players who don't want to play with sound. For example, if I moved this to a mobile phone platform or something like that, players might have the sound off, or but they're playing their own soundtrack, whatever. So you can't rely on sound in video games either way. So it'd have to be something visual, but if I did a bar, obviously I couldn't do the bar at the bottom of the screen or at the top of the screen or something. It would have to be something near the player. And then there's just this weird bar floating there. That's probably not a great idea. The other thing is, the possibility that I thought of during the break is I could have like the player flash, for example, for those like 5 frames or whatever, where you can hit the button again to fire faster than you normally can. Like right now, let me turn on invincibility and unlimited ammo. But like if I just keep hitting control, this is as fast as I can fire. I could slow that down a little bit, but this is as fast as I can fire bullets. But what I could do is have just this brief window in between that where the player flashes, and if you fire when they flash, then you can fire off an extra bullet really fast. Whether that's worth doing or not, kind of in the air about it, so I think I'm going to rest on that idea for a little while. And let me see what you guys in the chat think too. If you do have opinions on that, definitely let me know. It's going a little crazy up there. Let me pause that while I catch up to the chat. If you do have opinions on this, definitely, jump in. If you've been lurking and you have an opinion on it, now's your time to jump in. But Pandavits mentions, if you were to have power-ups, I'd recommend increasing enemy volume. Like if you want a spread shot, you need to have enough enemies that they're useful. Yeah. I was just using the power-up example for like, that whole going and collecting stuff mechanic. I don't think this is the kind of game where I'd want power-ups because like you said, there aren't that many enemies on the screen. It's not that kind of game. Maybe if there was a challenge mode where enemies are just kind of swarming the player, power-ups would be an okay idea. Might be something for the future. But splitting 1 to 3. Okay. Yeah, that's about power-ups. But kind of thinking about the reload thing, whether it's worth having the player flash and allowing players to shoot faster, the whole thing comes down to whether the player wants to be able to shoot faster or not. And my suspicion, as I think about it more and more from the time I posted that article, is that the player really doesn't want to shoot faster. The player is either going to need to shoot or not shoot. It's not about pumping bullets into something, for example. Like, for example, in Gears of War, the whole thing is pumping as many bullets into the other person as fast as possible with as much damage as possible. In this game, it's more precision in a way, where if the enemy is in a state where you can hit them, like if the ghosts are red because the bell's ringing, you just want to be able to shoot them. You don't have to shoot them a lot, you just have to shoot them. Same with the alien. When their shield is down, you just have to shoot them. And how charged up your bullet is depends on how long you've been holding it, how many times it's been bouncing, etc. So there's probably not a whole lot of demand for being able to fire out a bunch of bullets, especially considering that the player only has 6 to start, and at least a maximum of 6. So being able to fire a lot of bullets or firing faster doesn't seem like it'd be that interesting a mechanic to add to this kind of game. The only mechanic that might be kind of interesting is if the player does hit in that flash moment, that they automatically fire out a charged bullet. That might be a more interesting way to go, because then they have a decision of, do I set myself up after firing the last bullet to do that? Or other situations that could happen are, I need a charged bullet, or I want to use a charged bullet, but I don't want to hold down the charge button and I don't want to wait for it to ping around the screen. So the other option is to fire off just a dud bullet, basically, just a regular gray bullet. Wait for that reload, aim for the enemy, and then when it comes, fire off a charged bullet. That seems like it'd be a better fit for this game if I wanted to implement this. I'll jump off Gears of War here. So instead of a quick reload mechanic, instant charge mechanic would probably be the better way to go. And the risk would be, one, you run out of bullets faster, because if you are firing off like a dead bullet just to get like a charged bullet so that you can get more points or whatever, you're going to run out of bullets faster, and you're going to have more bullets on the screen to dodge. So that seems like a pretty fair trade-off if you want to do that. So I think I'm going to implement that, and if I can figure out how, and call it a day. So let's see, the best timing would probably be when you're able to fire another bullet again. So for example, let's see, I think control is shoot. Is the player in a state to fire? These all need to be changed because I'm using booleans now. I think 0 is false, but just for clarity. So if they're not charging, as long as the control key is held down, charging set to true. Let's see, charging false 0. Okay, so when they hit control, peel charge time. That is that. The thing that actually produces the bullet is, I think, in begin step. No, step. That's dodge stuff. That is shoots. Just need to find exactly where I'm doing the shooting. If rolling, that's control room start release. Oh, release control is where I'm doing the shooting. Of course, because when you have control held down, you're charging up the bullet. It's when you release that you actually shoot. So let's see. Alarm 0 right now is being set to 15, which means every 15 frames you can fire another bullet, if I recall. Yes, that is the case. Let's see, that's if you overcharge, right? Okay, yeah, that's if you supercharge a bullet, you knock yourself down, that's fine. Reset the bullet charge mechanic. Okay, so it's this thing here, this alarm 0. When alarm 0 goes off, there should also be a little bit of a buffer after that that gives the player a chance to fire off a fully charged bullet. So what I should do, if I want to try this mechanic out, let me save before I do it. This is just a test. Whether this is actually a good mechanic or not, it's probably one of those things that you'll only be able to tell once it's in the game. But I'll call it super shot. So if super shot is true, fire off, a fully charged shot. Let's see. These are all true. And I only want to do it if the player is releasing control when they've got a super shot going. So first thing is to set super shot to true when they're able to fire again. And I'm going to need another alarm here. So alarm 6 is my not super. Yeah, now I'm stumbling over my words. My coffee's running out. Super shot cooldown. So once this alarm is triggered, PL super shot gets set back to false. So let's see. be able to shoot again. So I want to be able to call that from here. Let's see. Shot window. Let's call it that. Super shot window times room speed, so that I can put it in seconds. And let's just do a quarter of a second, which would probably be 15 frames, maybe. I think it's at 60 frames. So if that's the case, PL Supershot is going to be true for that many frames. And before I forget to add it, let me add it in here. Okay, and other places I need to set Supershot to false are if the player gets hurt, then I need to set it to false, just to make sure that they don't have a super shot as soon as they recover or something crazy. So anything that can hurt them disables the super shot again. Bumper bullet drop, that's all fine. Probably also want to have ducking disable the super shot. Okay, looks good. Alright, so now it's down to actually what this super shot thing does, which is set bullet direction, that's all fine. Charge the bullet according to charge level. This, let's see, what should I do for this? If PL Supershot is true, then oops, don't want to do that. Then just do this. Otherwise, worry about charging. So if the super shot is true, then it fires just that red bullet, the one right below exploding. Otherwise, check the charge level, fire the bullet based on that. Let's see if that's enough to get it working. Might be enough to get it working. And Penovitz mentions like a beep beep or something. Yeah, in terms of telling the player when they're able to fire that super shot, you probably need a combination of sound effects and some kind of visual cue as well. The visual cue won't be available, but I do want to see if I can do the super shot. Yeah, okay. So I pulled it off there. Let me give myself unlimited lives and bullets so I can try it out a few more times. If I hit control and then wait to hit it again, I fire out bullets as normal. But if I can fire a bullet off right when his arm goes down, basically, I think is how it's working. It looks to be like about right when his arm, you know, when he's holding his gun and his arm goes down again. That seems to be about the timing when he can pull off a super shot. So, if I want to rack up a lot of points, what I can do, well, it's going to be hard to do on the ghost level, but I suppose this is one of the spots where I'd want to be able to do it. Let's go somewhere else. Let's do the aliens. That's actually probably a good spot to use the super shot. So, with the aliens, it's really hard to get enough bounces going to get, the maximum amount of points out of an alien when you kill it. Because right now the points are based on how many bounces have happened in the bullet. It's basically what color the bullet is when it hits the enemy. So like there, I have a limited amount of time to hit this alien and get my points out of him. So this would be a good spot to do something like this, where I fire off just fire off a random bullet. Let me pause. Fire off just a random bullet in some direction just to get me ready to super shot the alien when I can. So like right there, I did pull it off where, I got the 10 multiplier, because when the bullet hits an alien, for example, the score is based on this thing called bullet score multiplier. When the bullet is gray, it's just 1. When it's light blue, I think it's 2, and then it scales up until the red one, which is 10. The explosive one is even more than that, but I don't think I want to give the player the ability to fire off an explosive bullet on a reload. So having a red bullet fire out from your gun is the best way to get, a lot of points, unless you want to rely on explosions. So you do get that brief window. It is very brief. It's, timing-wise, it seems about a good place to be in terms of timing. Because there's that kind of, that brief window when he drops his gun. Oops. Needed to give myself unlimited ammo there. Okay. So there's just that brief window when he drops his gun that you can fire off a super shot. I don't want to make it too easy to fire it off, because then that's all players would be doing, but, there's just that risk, do you waste a bullet to get the most points possible? It's not actually too bad. I'll see how it goes over the next couple of episodes and see whether it's worth expanding that out or maybe just cutting it out altogether. Right now it seems like it's an alright feature. So let's put that into done. And I'm going to start wrapping up the show here. If Trello cooperates. There we go. So, to wrap up this week, what I did first was, for the first hour of the show, thank you guys for sticking with me through that, by the way, was drew out all those sprites, where the guy's in his white tank top and his red boxers without his hat. So I drew out all the sprites for that. Still have a couple to do. I can just do those after the show really quick. I don't think you guys want to see that. And change the system over so that instead of having to look in the upper left of the screen for lives, you can just see it through the clothing. I might get rid of those icons altogether. Might not need them, because right now it's just represented by clothing. One thing I do have to do is player power-up. Is add a power-up, extra life equals clothing. I do need to add something so that the player can recover from that state. But I can do that next time. Probably just use like the bullet drop mechanic or something, so that when an enemy dies, there's a chance they'll either leave behind a bullet or a set of clothing if the player's damaged. Much like Zelda, for example, if you kill an enemy and you're not full health, they'll sometimes leave behind hearts instead of coins. Kind of the same mechanic. The player can now recover faster depending on whether they're wailing on the dodge button or not while they're hurt. That hurt animation is also longer. Probably adjust that in the future just to make it feel right. And the thing I just added, which definitely didn't take... I overestimated that because I still had the original thing in there. But the instant charge mechanic where after the player fires a bullet, which you just saw, there's that brief window where they can fire off a really powerful bullet after that. So that's what I got done this episode. Move that over. Okay. And let's think about next week. just to give you a preview of what I'll be working on next week, which will be the last episode of the year, I think. Oh wow, yeah, we've had a lot of episodes. If you're trying to catch up on YouTube, well, you've got stuff to do over winter break. Can't say there's nothing to watch. Let's see. What do I want to do? Well, I'll probably do this in the meantime. So I'll just move this over here. Also, just so I don't forget, I think I'll move this one over here. Just so that I remember to fill in the rest of those sprites. But I'll do those before next episode so I can focus on this. The next thing, the last thing, is probably going to be whether or not it's worth having a boss enemy in the game. The boss enemy would be something like maybe bigger than other enemies. It's probably worth having something that looks like a boss. And the big difference between this and other enemies would be that it could take damage. Probably also the way it can attack would probably have to be boss-like. Whether I go, all out with it and go like a Binding of Isaac kind of boss or something that goes around the room and fires off a bunch of bullets or whatever. Have to think about that over the next week. But, I'm thinking probably, 4 sprites worth of size, able to fire off like multiple bullets, able to take damage, things like that. So probably, its color starts to shift as you damage it. And, I'll have to think about the exact mechanics, but I think that's what I'm going to be doing next episode. There is this one last task here before all the brush up tasks, which is AI Enemy Manager. And all this is, for example, right now, each enemy has its own AI state. So you've got, each enemy running around here. And you've got each enemy thinking on its own, randomly, do I shoot, do I shoot, do I shoot? For the Cowboy levels, this isn't actually too bad. But for the Alien level, this is really bad because, if all of them have a clear shot of the player here, there's a chance that all of them could start firing the laser, which is fine, I guess, but it's just kind of unfair for the player because there's no way, the dodge mechanic isn't enough where they're going to be able to dodge like 3 lasers sweeping across the screen and bouncing off crystals and stuff like that. So probably the better way to go is, instead of doing it this way, have, something down here that asks the question, should someone who has a clear shot of the player fire? If so, for example, if there's 2 candidates, tell this guy to fire, or tell this guy to fire. That way, it kind of spreads out the enemy attacks, and this would be, well, if I can write it properly, I won't write everything out. This would be that AI manager. It might not take that long to do. I might do a little prep work in advance, we'll see. But I would like to get that done before the end of the year, in addition to the boss. But I think the boss will take a full episode, so I'll just leave the boss cowboys the tasks. And just to let you know, also this week, because Christmas is coming, I'm also going to do a little bit of a Christmas special. And let me bring it all the way over here. I won't add the tasks in yet because I want to keep it a little bit of a surprise, but I think I'm just going to do a Christmas episode, and to give you a preview, what I'm thinking is I'll probably, from the planning stage all the way to the implementing stage, go through it all in one episode, including drawing the sprites and all that. So that it'll be kind of probably a meaty episode, but what I'm thinking of doing is I'm not going to do it live. I'm just going to do it, some nights and stuff, and kind of compile it into a YouTube video, so it'll go up on YouTube. So if you're interested in following it, it'll probably go up around Christmas Eve or so. I'll post that on Twitch. So, well, not Twitch, Twitter. So if you're following on Tengu on Twitter, or if you're following our website, www.bluetengu.com, there'll be more information about that. Obviously, if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, you'll see it pop up. But I might, fast forward through some sections just to make it, kind of a more compact episode. But there'll be an animated short and everything in it, and that'll be coming up, just to give you a little preview. But that is that. If you're not interested in that, don't worry. It won't affect the main game. It's just a special Christmas stage that I'm planning. It'll just be another stage. Next week, same time, same station, I'll be back with the Boss Cowboy stuff. So let's see here. I have to save 25. I just want to make sure I get my times right, because I've always been thinking off the cuff about, what times the show is, but I want to let you know properly what times this thing is on. And boy, a boss would be insane. Yes, a boss would definitely be really interesting. It's going to force the player to run around, collect bullets and everything else, which they normally don't have to do. Normally they can just be more strategic, but I think a boss will keep them on their toes if I can do it right. But thank you guys for watching our game development show. You can catch past episodes in this one over at www.youtube.com. Blue Tengu Studio, all one word. Definitely, subscribe on YouTube if you can, if you're interested, obviously. And if you're watching this later on YouTube, come drop by the live show we do every week on Twitch TV Blue Tengu. For those of you with me in the chat, you already know what the times are because it's listed down there in the information. But right now it's Fridays 3 to 5 Pacific time. I'll start with North America, obviously. 3 to 5 Pacific, 4 to 6 Mountain, 5 to 7 Central, 6 to 8 Eastern. If you're in the UK, it starts Friday night at 11, runs to 1 a.m. Saturday morning. And if you're here with me in Japan, obviously it's 8 to 10 Saturday morning, which is when I do it. And it'll start 8 to 10 depending on where you live in Australia on Saturday morning, and 11 if you're in New Zealand. So it'll go from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. in New Zealand. We always announce what we're doing through Twitter, so follow Blue Tengu to keep track of when the live show starts or episodes go up on YouTube, because I always post them later on YouTube. Or follow us on Twitch or YouTube. Because I think as well, if you subscribe on YouTube, it also tells you when I'm doing the live stuff and all that. So it's just another way to keep track if you're interested, of course. And of course, you can always see what we're up to anytime over at www.bluetengu.com. And like I said, be on the lookout for a Christmas special coming to YouTube in the next couple of days. I'll have a new animated short, try to put together a complete, Christmas theme level from the planning phase all the way to completion, just to kind of, condense, I guess, what I've been doing over the last 6 months into just one episode for those of you guys who haven't seen all of those. And for those of you who won't be catching that, I hope I'll catch you next week. And Pandavit's in the chat before I go. Lots of stuff got done today. Yes, I'm very happy with that. Usually I always underestimate how long things take. It's nice to have one of those days where I overestimate how long things take. Good change of pace. And with a little weirdness, yes, things just kind of worked. I wish things did that all the time, but then I guess game development wouldn't be very fun if things worked. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.